Bible that some people ever read. I was reading for my last class in school. I have to write a 7-page report on church history. And I was reading a book that I had at home called Systematic Theology, and it gives the theologies of different branches of Christianity. It talked about the church being visible and also invisible. Basically, the church is invisible because even though people come to a building, we don't know who's really part of that church or who's not. Only Jesus Christ knows. And then there's the visible church, the church that the world sees. And it made a statement like what Frank just almost said. We may be the only Bible that the world reads. That is the visible church. So we need to be very mindful when we go out, who we're around, that we are a visible church to the world. But we are also invisible. Only God knows who is the members of the church. All right. Good prayer. Exodus 13:21. We are fixing to move this bunch of Hebrews across the river. All right. Get them out of Egypt. Get them into the wilderness where they can basically start growing in Christ or start growing in God. You will see growing pains for the next several weeks with these Hebrews. They will complain. They will bellyache. They will come to God. They will fall away from God. They will bellyache and complain. They will go to an idol. Some will die. Some will live. One generation will pass away. Another generation will be raised up to go into the promised land. That is how God is going to do this. You'll notice that while we're studying this, the people that are going to be crossing over into the Red Sea are going to be crossing over that body of water. Only 2 of those individuals are actually going to cross over into Canaan out of the millions of that generation. We're going to have Caleb and we're going to have Joshua. So here we have a group of people, millions of people are going to be crossing over. That generation, God is going to get them out of the way. He's going to have to, basically, they're going to have to die before God can bring them in. And it's all from disobedience. It's all from lack of faith. And we start in verse 21. And this is extremely interesting. They will change their route a couple of times. They will change their route a couple of times. Basically what they will do is they will go in this area. They will fan down this way. And then they'll go back up this way. Several maps will have several different arrows. Basically what God is going to want them to do is He's wanting them to go south, north, a couple of times. And that way it gives the impression that these bunch of Hebrews out there, they don't know where they're going, they're lost. So Pharaoh is then going to attack. This is all part of God's plan. And we'll see that in chapter 14. But there's 2 ways that God is going to lead these individuals. And I think these are 2 verses that to me are fascinating. In verse 21, they are in verse 20, first of all, they are in Etham, which is in this area right here. Question mark, of course. They're in Etham. All right? They are camped there. But you'll find out in verse 2 of chapter 14, he moves them from Pi-haroth to Migdal and to Bazaphon, which is actually in these general areas, all of them with question marks. So it's in that general location where they're at. Okay? Now, I want you to look at this. They're leading them out, and the Lord went before them by the day in a pillar of a cloud and led them the way. All right? Now, the way. There is a cloud that, if you study the Old Testament enough, you'll see that the cloud is also called the Shekinah glory of God. He is demonstrated in a cloud. God will make His presence known in a cloud. When Moses goes to the top of the mountain, he goes up into a cloud to where the people cannot see Moses. They only see Moses ascending up into a cloud. So when you see this, God is leading them by a cloud. In the Hebrew, I was looking up before we came out tonight, it actually means to be sheltered, and it actually means refreshment. And Another thing about a cloud is this, is that when you would have when you'd have the wilderness tabernacle, which was it's not real big inside. You basically had the Ark of the Covenant, you have the golden lampstand, you had the brazen altar, and then you had the mercy seat that would sat on top of the Ark of the Covenant. And the mercy seat is where God would come down in a cloud and he would cover the mercy seat. So he is demonstrated in the Old Testament as a cloud. So he is leading them by a cloud. And I want you to notice there's two words that are found in verse 21, and it is the way. The way. All right? In John, you don't have to go there, I will. In John chapter, and I promise I did not plan it out like this. It just kind of, all of this coincided together with John and Exodus. In John chapter 14, verse 6. Now remember, in Exodus, we just seen that God is leading them by the day by a cloud, okay? And he is leading them the way, all right? In John 14, 6, this is what it says, and Jesus said unto them. Let me start in verse 1. This is Jesus Christ speaking at the Passover. Let not your hearts be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me. For in my Father's house are many mansions. That is also in the Greek rooms. In my Father's house are many rooms. Okay, if it were not so, I would have told you, I go to prepare a place for you. What God is doing right now is he is actually, Jesus Christ is preparing places for us to stay in his house. When a lot of people read that, they think that, and it says, in my Father's house are many mansions. Actually, what it means is in my Father's house, the word mansions is also rooms. In my Father's house are other rooms where we'll be staying at. We'll be staying basically in the same house that God is in. All right? And he says, and if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there you will be also. I want you to look. And whether I go, ye know, and the way you know. What did God lead them by day? A cloud. Where was they going? The way. All right? And he tells them now in verse 4, whether I go ye know, and the way you know. If these Israelites leaving the land of Egypt, the only way they're going to get to know where to go is to follow the cloud, which is showing them two words, the way. If you study church history, Christian, the word Christ was really a slanderous term. It was a term that used to make fun of us. But we took it and we put a positive on it. Actually, in the early church, right after Jesus died and the church formed, Christians was known as people that were in the way. If we was living back during first century Christianity, we'd be known as people that was in the way, following Jesus Christ. So it tells us in verse 21 that there was a cloud that was representative of God, and he was leading them in the way. All right? And now this is what Thomas says unto him in chapter 14, John 5. Thomas said unto him, Lord, we know not whither thou goest, and how can we know the way? Jesus said unto him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. How are these disciples, how are they going to know where to go if they follow Jesus Christ, which is the way? As Christians, how do we know where to go? There is a way. In these Hebrews, the only way that they are going to be able to get to where they're going is to follow a certain way. All right? In Proverbs chapter 14, verse 12, very important that you follow the correct way. And I know that sounds very cliche-ish, and I know that you hear people a lot of times say, well, you're at a crossroad, you need to go to the left or the right, you can go the right way, you can go the wrong way. But even though that we've heard that a zillion times from people, it is so very true. It is extremely true. In Proverbs chapter 14, verse 12, it says, there is a way that seemeth right unto man, but in the end there are ways of death. There are ways of death. So there's two ways. These Hebrews could have followed two different ways. They could have looked at God and said, listen, cloud, we care less about your cloud, we care less about your way. We're going to do what we want to. We've been here for 400 some odd years. We're going to do what we want to, okay? So what we're going to do, we're going to leave, and we're not going to follow your cloud. They would have lasted a week, okay? Even with God's direction and God's guidance and a capable leader like Moses, they were still not happy. So how much worse would it have been if they had not followed that way? So there is a way as Christians that we follow. John 14:6, Jesus Christ, and Thomas is wanting to know, what way do we go? And God basically says, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. Okay? Now, you'll have to understand that there is a pillar of cloud that led them the way. And by night, a pillar of fire to give them light. Okay? Now, we're going to park here for a second. All right? So during the day, you had a cloud. We don't know if it was a gigantic cloud. We don't know. We just know it was a cloud. Okay? We don't know if it was high, low, where it was at. It was just a cloud. All right. But by night, in a pillar of fire to give them light. Okay? So at night, you had a cloud that gave them the way to go. And then at night, the fire gave them light. It did not show them the way. It gave them what? Light. Okay, now, we're going to be in John a lot. In John 1. It's amazing to me how the Old Testament can kind of be, and I like to use the word crochet into the New Testament. They really blend in together. They really do. In John chapter 1, I'll find it real quick. John chapter 1, verse 4, very beginning of the book of John. One of my favorite chapters. This is what it says. Let's start in verse 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by Him, and without Him was not anything made that was made. In Him was life, and the life which was light of men. How are they going to follow in darkness? Only one way, by light. Okay? They are walking in darkness, but there is a light showing them how to get out of that darkness. Okay? Now in verse 5, and the light shineth in darkness. Okay? So when the sun went down over these Hebrews, of course nighttime comes, and the only way they're going to know to get out of some way is to follow a fire that gave them, I want you to look what it says, a pillar of fire to give them light. Okay? So the fire produced light. So the only way they're going to know to get out of somewhere is to follow this light. And the light that shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. And I want you to look in verse 7, same chapter. The same came for a witness to bear a witness of the light, that all men through him might believe. He was not that light, talking about John the Baptist, but was sent to bear witness of that light. That was the true light which lighteth every man that cometh into the world. Look in John 3:21. John 3:21. It says, but he that doeth, this is Jesus Christ speaking in John 3:21, but he that doeth truth cometh to the light. I am the way, the truth, and the life. What is truth? You got it in your hand. You flip through the pages of it, I hope, on a daily basis. This Bible is truth. The words are truth. This is what holds Christianity together. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Because he says, he that doeth truth cometh to the light, that his deeds may be manifest, that they are wrought in God. Our deeds that we do one day are going to be brought to the light. In everything that you, any job you have, anything you do, everything can be accomplished when the light's on, right? You know when you're sitting at home and the power goes off and you're trying to find a flashlight or something, you bump your knee, hit your toe. Okay, you know why? Because you're in darkness. But as soon as that light comes on, you'll be able to see. I know that sounds really simple, but Jesus Christ says, I am the light, and the same light that guided them Hebrews is the same light that guides us. Look in John 8:12. John 8:12. And like we say, it is always twos. It always comes in twos. You have darkness and you have light. There is a right way and there is a wrong way. The Hebrews could have followed the wrong way and they could have not stuck with the light. But they went the right way and they stuck with the light. In John 8:12, this is what it says. In John 8:12, it says, then Jesus spake unto them, saying, I am the light of the world. He that followeth me. Did the Egyptians, I keep saying Egyptians, did the Hebrews follow God or did God follow them? They followed God. God has never followed anyone. We follow Him. So Jesus Christ is saying, I am the light of the world. He that followeth me shall not walk in darkness, but have the light of life. There is a stipulation to salvation. You know what it is? You have to follow the light. It doesn't say, I'll save you, and then you just sit there. Salvation is a process. It is a going. Jesus Christ told His disciples, go out, baptize, preach the gospel. Don't sit there. Go out and do something. Every time you see Jesus Christ speaking of light, there is always an action taking place after it. And is moving toward the light, moving with the light, following the light. Look in John 9:5. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. As long as I'm here, I am the light. Go to John 12. John 12:35. John 12:35 and 36. Jesus said unto them, yet a little while is the light with you. Do you know that what's interesting about this light that Jesus Christ, God led them by? It didn't last forever. When they crossed over into the promised land, guess what happened to that light? It was gone. It was gone. But as long as they had to follow that light while that light was available. And Jesus Christ tells us now, says Jesus said unto them, yet a little while is the light with you. Walk while you have light. In Genesis 6:3 says, my spirit's not always going to be with man. It's not always going to be. And Jesus is telling them, my light is here and you better walk in it while you have an opportunity and a chance to do it. It says, for he that walketh in darkness knoweth not whither he goeth. Verse 36, while you have light, it's not always going to be here. Believe in the light, that ye may be children of what? The light. So this light that Jesus Christ talks about is often, go through the book of John. That's all he talks about is a light. That is what he describes himself as. Look in verse 46. I am come a light into a world. Whosoever believeth on me should not abide or live in darkness. Abide, live. Light is all, when Jesus Christ speaks of light, it's always talking about salvation. Okay? And what salvation is to be saved from something. What are we saved from? We are saved from the wrath of God. It tells us that in Romans, it tells us in Ephesians also. We're saved from God's wrath. We're not saved from sin, we're saved from His wrath. What are these people being saved from by following that light? Wrath of Pharaoh. Because if he could get his hands on their necks, if he could get his hands on Moses, he'd kill him. So they have got to leave, they've got to get out, and they've got to move. And God is going to give them a cloud and a light. Both is representative of God and Jesus. A cloud representative of God in the Old Testament, and a light representative of Jesus Christ in the New. Okay? Now, he took not away the pillar of cloud by day, nor the pillar of fire by night from before the people. When they cross over Jordan, it leaves. The manna leaves, the light leaves, the cloud leaves. But for that 40 years, it's going to be there. All right? Look in Psalms 51:11. Psalms 51:11. It says, cast me not away from thy presence. And that light and that cloud is the presence of God. David tells, after that sin with Bathsheba, cast me not away from thy presence, and take not thy Holy Spirit from me. It tells us in the book of Exodus that he took not away the pillar of that should be our prayer. Not that we can lose our salvation. You cannot lose your salvation. But God can cast you from his presence. David tells us, don't cast him away from your presence. I believe after that sin with Bathsheba, even though there was forgiveness and there was mercy and there was grace showed, you'll notice that God rarely speaks to David after that. He said, he begs God, do not take me away from your presence. Now, I was thinking about this yesterday. I was driving back, and I was listening to something on the radio, and there was a preacher on there. And he's preaching about, being separated, being, cast into hell. You don't want to go to hell because there's fire, there's brimstone, there's going to be a devil with a pitchfork poking you. That's not what makes hell bad. What makes hell bad is you're separated from God. It's not the fire that will be there. It's not the brimstone. God ain't going to be there. That's what makes hell so bad. But he tells us now in verse 22, he took not, it was always there. It was always there. When they were belly aching and when they were griping, guess what was still there? That cloud and that fire. When there's things, and this is my crutch, and it's the cross that I bear. When there's things that happen in my life that I can't deal with it, I have to remember. And if you're not like this, I'm great. I have to remember that there is still a cloud there and there's still fire there leading me. Okay? And he takes not the cloud, and he takes the pillar by night. It is from before the people. It's always there. God's always there. God's always there. Have you ever in your life prayed, and it feels like when you pray, it just kind of falls down and it doesn't go anywhere? Or if you've ever prayed, it feels like heaven's made out of brass and it can't penetrate. God is always there. Always. Now, verse 14, chapter 14, I know that took a while, I'm sorry. Chapter 14. All right. Now the Lord is going to speak unto Moses. Notice God never speaks. You know there's a group of people he never speaks to. You know who it is? Children of Israel. I won't ever talk to them. He always speaks to one person, to Moses. He says, you go tell them that I said. All right? He always speaks, and the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel. All right? Lord spake unto Moses, saying, you go tell them that I said. All right? And this is it, that they turn and encamp before Piharoth, which is between Migdol and the sea over against Baal-zephon. Before it shall ye encamp by the sea. All right? So basically what he's wanting them to do is just look like they're kind of lost. You got 3 million, 4 million people, okay, wandering around. For Pharaoh will say of the children of Israel, they are entangled in the land. The wilderness hath shut them in. All right? Pharaoh still cannot get over the fact that God has defeated him and defeated his small g gods. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart. I mean, how much harder could it be? You just lost your kid. Your country's in ruins. After this dynasty, Egypt is no more. I mean, it's done. But he's going to harden it some more. I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he shall follow after them. And I will be honored upon Pharaoh and upon all his host, that the Egyptians may know that I am the Lord, and they did so. Out of Pharaoh's ignorance, and his stupidity, and his callousness, and him thumbing his nose at God, God is still going to get glory for it. No matter what happens in this country, God's still going to get glory for it. No matter what happens. I know we got an election year coming up, and God is still going to get glory. No matter who gets in the White House, God is still in control. It may not look like it sometimes, but believe me, he is. All right? He is. And it was told the king of Egypt. Who told him? You know who that meant? You know what happened with some of those mixed multitudes? Guess what they run and did? They ran right back to Pharaoh. All right? Just like the Pharisees, every time something happened and that Jesus would do something that kind of stuck in their craw, they'd run back to their other Pharisees, but they'd say, let me tell you what Jesus has just done. Just like this, and it says, and it was told the king of Egypt that the people fled. They didn't flee, God let them out. To flee means you run in fear, doesn't it? They didn't flee. So, and the heart of Pharaoh and his servants was turned against the people, and they said, this is the stupidest statement I believe Pharaoh has ever made. Why have we done this? That we have let Israel go from serving us. Okay, I can find so much wrong with that statement. Where do you start? First of all, you have nothing to do with it. God done everything. All right? Second of all, you didn't let them go. God allowed them to leave. All right? Third, you didn't have a choice. All right? And fourth, you just went through 10 plagues that has destroyed everything in your country. You've lost a child, and you still have the audacity to say, what have we done this for? It just goes to show sometimes people just don't learn, do they? They don't learn. I was telling Drew, I got a buddy of mine that said this at Boaz, and he said, my dog got out on the road, got hit, broke his leg in 3 places, and I had to put a rod in his leg. It cost me $500, and I just sit there and listen to him. He said, but I bet that'll break him from learning the road. I thought, I bet it won't. And we're like that as people. God does stuff for us and brings us out of sin, brings us out of trials and tribulations, and then we take our eyes off God and we want to go right back to where we were at. Now, and he made ready his chariot and took his people with him. And he took 600 chosen chariots, all right, and all the chariots of Egypt, and captains over every one of them. This is not only 600 chosen chariots. This is many more. You know what the chosen chariots are? It's not your everyday run-of-the-mill chariot. These are the ones that when they come out, they do damage. These are the ones that stay in the garage. You don't mess with them. They stay kind of in the back. And when it's time to pull out the big guns, these are the ones they're going to do. Now, this is what I don't understand. You got 600 chosen chariots and all the chariots of Egypt. So not only do you have 600, but what else do you got? Thousands and thousands. If you're going against, let's just round about 3 million people, you're going to take about that equivalent of a chariot, aren't you? Now we're dealing with Egypt and all this. Hundreds of thousands of these things are coming out. All right? So you've got all these chariots. What makes him think that all these chariots are going to be able to defeat God? I mean, they have been defeated by flies, by frogs, by blood, by lice, by locusts, by hail, by darkness. I mean, what makes you think that your chariots are going to do any good? Because God's hardened his heart. I want you to look. 600 chosen chariots and all the chariots of Israel and captains over every one of them. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he pursued after the children of Israel. And the children of Israel went out with a high hand. Do you know whose high hand it was? God's. Okay. Now, but the Egyptians pursued after them. Just like Satan. He's always pursuing it. What does he describe like in the Bible? As a roaring lion, seeking whom he may what? Devour. He is a type of Satan, Pharaoh. He's a type of the world. But they pursued after them all the horses and chariots of Pharaoh and all of his horsemen and his army, and overtook them encamping by the sea. All right? Now, we've got not only 600 chosen chariots, but we've got untold thousands following him. Thousands and thousands and 10,000s. There's no telling how many of these chariots are going out. You know, we watched that great show, the Ten Commandments. There's only like about 100. You know, it's way beyond that. Okay? It probably looks like the standing army of China coming after them. And when Pharaoh drew nigh, I'm trying to hurry up, until the children of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them. And my, guess what? And they were so sore afraid. And the children of Israel cried out unto the Lord. And they said unto Moses, boy, they haven't even crossed yet, or they're starting to bellyache. Okay? They haven't even got their feet wet into the Red Sea, and they're going to start bellyaching. They've just come through all them plagues. All right? They have seen the power of God. They have just taken the Passover lamb. They have eaten the unleavened bread. I mean, they are just right off, and I've heard it say before, the hardest time for a church, okay, is after a great revival happens. My dad's preached thousands of revivals, thousands of them, and he used to drag me to most of them. And the preachers would always say, Dad would always, back when he was younger and would think about doing it, he would always call the preacher 2 or 3 weeks after and say, how's everything going? It's awful. It's awful. We had a great revival that week. It's awful. So after you come off of a great revival, that is when the devil really attacks. It really is. And this is what happens. And it says they were, and this is what they said unto Moses, because there were no graves in Egypt, hast thou taken us away to die in the wilderness? Wherefore hast thou dealt thus with us, to carry us forth out of Egypt? Wow. Well, it didn't take long for them to get their bellies full, did it? I bet you Moses was like, oh, geez, what have I got myself? I ain't got this bunch out in the wilderness yet, and they're already griping. For the next 40 years, this is what he's going to hear. Moses, in my opinion, we always talk about the patience of Job. Job had nothing on Moses. Moses was patient. I would have said, listen, I'm going back to Midian. I got some goats over there and sheep. Y'all can deal with it. I mean, I'm serious. 3 million people are belly aching and griping. And this, is it not this the word that we did tell thee in Egypt, saying, now they're right on this. Do you remember when he came over the first time to kind of rescue them? Well, I ain't listening to you. Well, what are you doing coming over here? You've been gone for 40 years. You know, we just go back to wherever you come from. And they're right. It says, let us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians. For it had been better, and this is not the last time they say this, for it had been better for us to serve the Egyptians than we should die in the wilderness. In all honesty, all right, you've got a guy that's 80 years old. He has lived a very eventful life. Got a couple of kids, got a wife, had lots of property over in this area, over here somewhere. Still in great shape. What would you have done? In all honesty, don't say, well, I fought for him. We've left for less than this. What have we done? Bye. See ya. I mean, like, hey, Chris, grab Danny and Chris, we're leaving. I mean, they're not even crossed over yet. There's the water. And they said, what'd you bring us out here for? We're in the wilderness. You're not in the wilderness. You left here and you're just here. You're that far. Wait till you get down in here. Up in here. I mean, if it's this bad here, imagine what it's like here. Okay? And I know it sounds funny, and it is funny, but we're just like that. We are exactly like that. I'm like that. And it says, for it had been better for us to serve the Egyptians. Does it say anything about God? Serve the Egyptians. Serve their gods. Worship their gods. Take place in what they want us to do. It would have been better if we'd have stayed there and died than we died in the wilderness. They haven't seen wilderness yet. If they think, we're going to stop right there because I don't want to get in anymore. But if they think it's rough now, you just wait. And they bellyache, and they gripe, and they bellyache, and they gripe. And this is my opinion. I honestly, and I knew before the foundations of the world was laid, God knew this was going to happen. But I think God basically put the period at the end of that in verse 12. I've got to get rid of this generation because they're not going to do nothing but worry him to death. And thank God for his daddy-in-law, because he's the one that come down and said, how are you dealing with these 3 million fake people? What you need to do is get you 70 men. That's where you get the Sanhedrin from. But could you imagine, Moses has no nerve pills. Now, I know this is funny. He has no nerve pills. He has no psychiatrist. He has no psychologist. He doesn't have a couch to down and tell his problems to. We've got one man dealing with all of this. And we think we've got it right. Seriously. And this applies to me. I mean, you've got these people that have not crossed over yet, and they're already wanting to go back to Egypt. You already need to stay there. If it would have been us, And I know some of your personalities, probably like mine, would have said, well, you can take your hind end back to Egypt and you go there and you stay. You know, but you notice how patient Moses is. Just wait, be still, hold on, don't get antsy. You know, and to be honest, myself, I would have probably been one of them guys. When would you bring us out here for, Moses? I mean, in honesty, might have been some in this room that would have done that also. So we can learn a lot from two areas in this. We can learn a great deal from Moses, and we can learn a great deal from the children of Israel. How to and how not to serve God. Dear Heavenly Father, we love you and we thank you. Dear God, thank you for your book, for the truth that's in this book. Thank you, dear God, that you are the light. And thank you, dear God, that you are still here with us. We don't know, dear God, how much longer your light's going to be with us. But, dear God, we ask you, dear God, just to be with us long enough, dear God, to see souls saved. Dear God, I've got family and I've got friends. Dear God, I ask you and I beg you to save them. Dear God, the prayer requests we've heard, dear God, we lift them up to you.